Assalamu alaikum everyone. So today we will be looking at कि जो आपका economics का O levels के अंदर paper 2 है. So what are the ways to approach it and what paper 2 exactly is and how to solve the paper 2. ठीक है? So सबसे पहले we need to see कि आपके paper 2 के अंदर what are the requirements. So let's overview it कि paper 2 है क्या. First of all, it is 70% of your component grade, ठीक है? So that means कि it is a huge chunk and your grade highly depends on paper 2. ठीक है? In this particular session, we will be talking about the section B, जो कि structured questions होते हैं. We'll be covering data responses in another video. ठीक है? सबसे पहले जो the question structure of paper 2 is कि there will be one compulsory question, and that would be the data response. And that data response would be of 30 marks. ठीक है? उसके बाद you will have 4 questions. ठीक है? And out of those 4 questions, you have to attempt any 3 questions. ठीक है? That means कि that is 3 out of 4 की आपके पास choice होगी. Furthermore, each question will contain 20 marks. ठीक है? And those 20 marks will be divided into 4 subparts. And those 4 subparts will further be divided किस तरह? Let's see that. सबसे पहले you have a define या identify का question, which is usually of 22 marks. ठीक है? Then we have an explain का question, जो हमारा command word होता है, and that is of 4 marks. उसके बाद we have a question of which जिसकी key term है analyze, that is of 6 marks. And then the final part would be a discuss question, which would be of 8 marks. ठीक है? So this is an overview of paper 2 के paper 2 के अंदर क्या क्या आता है and किस तरह आता है. The time you will be allowed would be 2 hours and 15 minutes, and the total marks would be 90. 60 marks for section 2, section B, and 30 marks for section 1. ठीक है? And you will be tested on 3 area assessment objectives, that is knowledge, analysis, and evaluation. We'll see के let's see कि ये होते क्या हैं. ठीक है? Knowledge is basically being able to recall the economic terms, which means कि आपने जो definitions वगैरह याद की हैं या आपने जो points वगैरह आपने याद किए हुए हैं, stating those in the answers, that is your knowledge. ठीक है? Defining economic terms, using formulas, making points. ठीक है? So that is what your knowledge is all about. ठीक है? Knowledge is incomplete without the analysis. With just knowledge, you won't be able to gain good marks in the exam. Moving on to the second component of our exam, which is the analysis. Analysis is basically an extension of the knowledge point. कि आपने knowledge point को बताया, and analysis would be to explaining it further. ठीक है? So organizing the data, ये जब data response आता है, analyzing that, developing links. Students, remember that developing links is an essential and a crucial point and a crucial thing that you should be able to do in your exams, because if you're not able to develop links in the exam, then you won't be able to get good marks. And finally, we come to our exam, which is the evaluation. Evaluation is basically being able to develop, yeah, analyze both sides of the argument in a logical way. Both sides of the argument. ठीक है? So that is basically what evaluation is all about. And थोड़ा आगे जाके we'll see के किस तरह we have to evaluate and किस तरह we can do that. ठीक है? So let's move on. We already talked about the question structure. Let's now talk about how to analyze in depth. Remember, जो हमारा second area objective है, which is the analysis, that is a crucial part of our exams. और जब भी हमने लिखना है, we have to develop the analysis. What we usually call is कि हमें एक chain of analysis develop करना होता है, ठीक है? Chain of analysis, and this chain of analysis, what it means is कि you are analyzing something in depth. This is what a chain of analysis is, ठीक है? And on the contrary, जो कि हम कहते हैं, which is limited analysis, ये आपने avoid करना. And let's talk about these कि क्या होता है ये. Let's take an example कि for example that we have कि we know कि अगर we have interest rates and the government reduces the interest rates, ठीक है? And in a question, if I say कि interest rate कम होने से eventually क्या है, aggregate demand बढ़ जाएगी, ठीक है? This is something that I should not do, ठीक है? Because there is a hell lot of things in between जो कि मैं link कर सकता हूँ, जो कि मैंने नहीं link की, ठीक है? So that would be limited analysis. Chain of analysis कैसे develop होगा कि interest rates reduce हैं, ठीक है? See, the jumping to the aggregate demand part, that would be a wrong thing to do, and that would be something which won't get you good marks. सबसे पहले है कि interest rates reduce हैं. तो सबसे पहली चीज जो होती है, that is the cost of borrowing. The cost of borrowing reduces, and simultaneously the return on saving also reduces. ठीक है? What that means is that people will now borrow more and people will save less. And this is not only about the people, we are also talking about firms as well, okay? Households and the firms. When people and firms borrow more and save less, what it essentially means is that the spending in the economy will increase. Okay? And when the spending in the economy increases, there will be an injection of investment because the firms are also doing the same, following the same behavior, and consumption. So investment and consumption ka there would be a injection. That will lead to a rise in aggregate demand. See, this is what a developed chain of analysis is. Ke all these links in between are explained. I have linked everything and the eventual result is a rise in aggregate demand. Limited analysis में भी मैंने यही बात की थी कि interest rate कम होने से aggregate demand बढ़ जाती है. But I missed all of these things. ये जो अंदर की पूरी कहानी है, I missed that. And that is the place where I was wrong and where I lost marks. So one of the things that you should remember is that you have to develop a chain of analysis and the analysis should be in depth. ठीक है? Moving on, let's see कि अब question structure किस तरह का होता है and what are we supposed to write in the questions. ठीक है? अब एक 2 mark question is usually tested 2 ways. ठीक है? जो 2 mark का question है, सबसे पहले it's either an identify question or a define question. ठीक है? अगर identify का question है, you simply have to state things. ठीक है? Let's say कि मेरे पास एक आया है कि identify 2 characteristics of money. So I'll just state 2 characteristics, that is general acceptability and divisibility. So that is what I will write. And point form में जब identify का question है, you have to identify 2 characteristics. I'll identify 2 characteristics as a list. ठीक है? जब define का question है, so remember one thing कि you should keep in mind कि for a 2 mark definition you need at least 2 points which should be correct, obviously. ठीक है? And उसकी वजह से क्या है कि you will get 2 marks. जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर मुझे आता है कि डिफाइन अ मैक्सिमम प्राइस, सो हाउ विल आई डिफाइन इट, कि अ मैक्सिमम प्राइस इज अ प्राइस सीलिंग which is said to provide relief to the consumers. According to producer, not be allowed the price listed 3 points, which are correct indeed, and which will eventually get me 2 marks. Definition of maximum price में you don't have any example to give on maximum prices, लेकिन some questions might have an example, so give an example for that. ठीक है? So give examples where possible. ठीक है? For example, if I have a question, के define a fixed cost. ठीक है? So I'll say कि fixed cost is a cost that does not change with the level of output. It even occurs at when the firm is producing nothing. An example of a fixed cost would be rent. ठीक है? So always give examples where possible, and remember कि 2 correct points आपको चाहिए होते हैं for a definition. My suggestion would be to write 3 points just to be on a safe side कि अगर एक examiner ना correct count करे तो you have a backup plan. ठीक है? The definitions are pretty straightforward. उसके बाद we come to a question which is the explain one. ठीक है? Let's have an example question and we'll see के किस तरह इसको explain करना. So let's have explain 2 reasons why commercial banks may want to merge. So this is a 4 mark question. ठीक है? So the general principle in these questions is कि it's 2 plus 2 का principle. And we'll talk about what 2 plus 2 is. ठीक है? The question explicitly asks you to give 2 reasons. That means that the marks division would be get 2 marks for one reason, 2 marks for one. 1 mark would be for stating one reason, and the second mark would be gained by explaining that. ठीक है? So let's have an example कि if I say कि mergers will allow banks to merge their operations and expand them. This अब ये जो है इसका मतलब है कि I have stated कि merger की वजह से the banks will be able to grow. That is my knowledge point and that is what I have stated. So मेरा पहला मार्क मुझे इधर मिल जाएगा. उसके बाद when I explain it, when they grow, this will allow them to gain economies of scale, due to which their average costs will fall, leaving them with greater profit margins. This is the explanation and the analysis which we talked about. And I have developed it in a chain of analysis. And that will give me full 2 marks for the one reason. The other reason, let's say कि मैं कहता हूँ कि mergers will allow banks to become one, thereby reducing competition and leading to a higher market share. ठीक है? Higher market share को मैं आगे explain कर सकता हूँ कि higher market share से they'll have a greater degree of power in the banking industry. So that means कि I've explained this और उसको अच्छी तरह explain करने पे ही I'll get full marks. So that is basically how you will answer in a 4 mark question. Moving on, जब हम आते हैं 6 mark question के ऊपर, so इधर थोड़ी सी things जो है gets trickier. A 6 mark question is basically tested 2 ways. ठीक है? We'll talk about it now. एक होता है जिसमें with diagram होता है कि the question asks you to explain some economic concept with the diagram. और एक question होता है without a diagram. And उसके अंदर it usually asks you to make links या develop analysis according to that. जब भी एक अब डायग्राम वाला क्वेश्चन 6 मार्क का क्या होगा, लेट्स सी. फॉर एग्जांपल, एनालाइज यूजिंग ए पीपीसी the effect of decrease in unemployment in an economy. in an economy. So ये एक 6 मार्क का क्वेश्चन है, and the question is explicitly asking me to use a PPC to explain it. तो इस तरह के questions के अंदर there will always be 4 marks reserved. The examiner has reserved 4 marks for the diagram, and the examiner has reserved 2 marks for the explanation of that diagram. ठीक है, तो let's see. तो अब उसने कहा है the effect of decrease in unemployment. I know कि it's a movement from inside the PPC towards the PPC. So diagram बनाते हुए भी keep a few things in mind कि जब भी diagram बनाना है always label the axes correctly. So when we're talking about the PPC of a whole economy, तो एक साइड पे we take consumer goods, दूसरी साइड पे capital goods. It's not a hard and fast rule. You can take good X, good Y, good A, good B, or any other combination. ठीक है? But it's in my recommendation is कि जब भी आप एक economy का PPC बना रहे हो, always take consumer goods and capital goods on the axis. And remember one thing कि always label the axes properly because they have a mark. ठीक है? So I'll draw an initial PPC and I'll show a point inside the PPC के initially we were producing at this point, ठीक है, x1, y1. And this movement from point A to point B is what signifies कि a decrease in unemployment is. ठीक है? So जब मैंने ये बना दिया, using the arrows I have to show the effect as well. मैंने ये show कर दिया. So this diagram gives me 4 straight marks. और जब मैं इसको explain करता हूँ कि decrease in unemployment means कि the economy is now utilizing its resources at its full capacity or closer to its full capacity. What it essentially means is that the economy is facing an actual economic growth, which is illustrated through a movement from inside the PPC towards the PPC as shown in the figure, which I have drawn above, on the right, on the left, depending on where you have drawn it. So that is how you're supposed to answer a question of a 6 mark, which explicitly asks you to use a diagram. In my experience of teaching, remember one thing, the PPC ke all diagrams, all the effects, all the changes you should be able to know. Shifts in PPC, movement from inside towards the PPC, ये सारे आपको आने चाहिए. Constant and then you should be able to know a demand and supply analysis, because these are frequently tested in a 6 mark question. They always say you should either use a PPC या कभी-कभी they ask you to use the demand and supply analysis to illustrate the effect of something. So demand और supply के factors याद होने चाहिए and PPC के सारे curves याद होने चाहिए. That concludes के हमारा पहला part of a 6 mark question, which was of with diagram. Now coming on to a question without a diagram, which is के जिसके अंदर it usually के कुछ effect पूछ लेता है. Let's see के if it says के analyze how a rise in interest rates would cause a recession. ठीक है? And this is of 6 marks. You should be able to know कि इस तरह के questions में you should at least be able to give 2 developed chain of analysis, 2 reasons या 2 points and developed. ठीक है? Let's say I say that an interest rate will make it expensive to borrow. This will discourage consumer expenditure and people will not be willing to borrow as much money to make purchases. Also, people will save their money because financial return is high. This will lead to lower aggregate demand, and lower aggregate demand would lead to a recession. That is my first chain of analysis, and uske upar you can get 3 to 4 marks for one chain of analysis भी. ठीक है, उसके बाद मैं कहता हूँ a high rate of क्या कहते हैं interest also discourages investment as it makes it more expensive to take out loans for purchasing capital equipment, and because demand for their products has also fallen, lower demand for goods and capital equipment will reduce their output, causing recession. ठीक है, you should be at least able to give 2 developed chain of analysis. On the optimum side, consider that you have to give 3 chains of analysis, and you should be able to do that. And that concludes our discussion for how to answer a 6-mark question. Always remember that there are 2 variants to that, and how you should be able to answer that. Coming on to the final part, which is the 8-mark question. An 8-mark question will always be a discuss wala question, or it will have levels of marking. ठीक है? Let's see that there are basically 3 levels. Level 1, there is level 0, okay, which is 0 marks. कि आपने बहुत ही like vague सा answer लिखा है, या you did not have attempted the question, तो you'll get 0 marks. अगर आपने कुछ ऐसा नहीं लिखा which is credit worthy, या which can be given credit, so you'll get 0 marks straight away. Then we have level 1 marking principle, which is 1 to 2 marks. 1 to 2 marks hota hai basically under undeveloped analysis. Undeveloped analysis का मतलब होता है कि you have only given knowledge points. ठीक है? उसके बाद अगर खाली knowledge points दोगे, you will only state the reasons, you will only end up with 2 marks out of 8. The maximum, उससे कम भी आ सकते हैं. उसके बाद we have level 2 marking, which is basically 3 to 5 marks. 3 to 5 marks तब मिलेंगे कि you have either written a 2-sided answer with undeveloped analysis, which is undeveloped analysis, या फिर you have only written 1-sided argument, or maximum 5 marks मिलेंगे if you have developed it. ठीक है? So that is level 2 marking. And finally we have a level 3 marking, which is 6 to 8 marks, and which is essentially you have clear in-depth analysis of both sides. In-depth analysis of and we'll see. सबसे पहले my recommendation to the students कि how you should structure the question. ये देख लें. सबसे पहले start off by defining the key term. जो भी एक key term होती है, just define the key term. ठीक है? उसके बाद start with 3 chains of analysis for the side for something जो कि एक side होगी, and then develop 3 chains of analysis for the side against that. ठीक है? और this also counts कि ये जो double-sided analysis है, this also counts as your evaluation. ठीक है? Let's see कि if I have a question to discuss whether or not a firm should have growth as its main objective. So the marking scheme for this particular question, yeah, this 8-mark question is always that you can get up to 5 marks for arguing for one side. ठीक है? So up to 5 marks for why it should. कि ग्रोथ है तो क्यों ऑब्जेक्टिव होगा, कि ग्रोथ विल लीड टू इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल, उसके एडवांटेजेस वगैरह बता दिए, उसके क्यों फर्म्स विल परस्यू ग्रोथ एंड एज एन ऑब्जेक्टिव, एंड देन अप टू 5 मार्क्स फॉर व्हाई इट शुड नॉट हैव ग्रोथ एज एन ऑब्जेक्टिव. तो जस्ट उसके अंदर रीजंस वगैरह बता दिए, एंड आर्ग्यूइंग दिस रीजन इन डेप्थ एंड इन डिटेल will get you 8 marks. Without that, you won't be able to score good marks. ठीक है? So these are the marking levels, and you should be able to at least get to this point where you are able to develop both sides in detail. Now हमने बात कर ली पेपर स्ट्रक्चर के ऊपर, हाउ टू राइट आंसर्स फॉर द ईच टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चंस. ठीक है? Now let's talk about some common errors which candidates usually do. ठीक है? Some common errors which I've seen, which examiners have pointed out in the examiner reports वगैरह. तो सबसे पहला error होता है कि basically you do not have a proper definition for something. So that is improper definitions या not imprecise definition. So improper definitions अगर आप दोगे तो it will not lead you to scoring good marks. ठीक है? कि rushing with that या बहुत vague terms के अंदर कुछ define कर देना या economic terms बिल्कुल ना use करना. So the second thing is not using economic terms. ठीक है? Remember one thing, you are giving an economics exam and every subject has its vocabulary. So you should be able to know the vocabulary of economics when you're dealing with the economics paper. So economic terms याद होनी चाहिए, interest rates है, aggregate demand है, consumption, investment, ठीक है? इस तरह की चीजें, recession, inflation, unemployment, economic growth, trade वगैरह की, ये सारी terms आपको याद होनी चाहिए, and you should be able to write these and use these in your answers. ठीक है? Without using economic terms, you won't get good marks in economics. फिर most of the time people confuse the concepts. ठीक है? Sometimes market share, market growth के अंदर they confuse. उसके अलावा PEDs के concept में बहुत confusion होती है. They usually inelastic को elastic समझ बैठते हैं, elastic को inelastic समझ बैठते हैं candidates. So confusing the concepts won't get you good marks. You have to be clear about your subject and you have to be clear about the components and the things. ठीक है? The fourth thing is not developing the analysis. जब हमने chain of analysis की बात की थी, so jumping from one thing to another is not a good thing. ठीक है? Let me go back to the chain of analysis part. If you jump directly from here to this aggregate demand thing, you won't score good marks. You have to go link by link. You have to go step by step approach. ठीक है? So not developing analysis is a huge blunder. And the fifth most important, the most common error which candidates usually do is that they do not write specific to the question. इधर उधर की बातें कर देंगे and they won't be able to answer the question in a very specific way, which obviously wastes your time and wastes your energy. It won't get you good marks and eventually time manage नहीं हो पाता. So they do not write specific to the question. इधर उधर की बातें करने से you won't get good marks. जब भी बात करनी है you have to use the specific thing. अगर बात हो रही है inflation की, इधर उधर की बात ना करो. Stick to that point कि how something leads to inflation या जो भी question की requirement है, try to fulfill that. इधर उधर की बातें नहीं करनी. ठीक है? And now finally there are some general advice for you guys कि what to do. सबसे पहले read the question carefully when answering the question. So read the question carefully. This is something जिसके ऊपर I cannot emphasize more कि you have to know your command words. You have to know what you are required to answer and you should be able to make points according to that. You always have a choice. Make the choice wisely. हमेशा ये ना करना कि पहले एक क्वेश्चन कर लिया, बीच में आके पता चला कि भाई आई एम नॉट एबल टू राइट दैट, तो दूसरा क्वेश्चन पकड़ लिया. It wastes time, it wastes your energy, and eventually you won't be able to manage time. So read the questions carefully, make the choice wisely कि कौन सा क्वेश्चन आंसर करना है, and then use economic terminology. ठीक है? अगर नहीं आती तो अभी से पढ़ने बैठ जाओ. तो इकोनॉमिक टर्मिनोलॉजी यू शुड बी एबल टू नो योर वोकैबुलरी, ठीक है। तीसरा है कि हमेशा चॉइस ऑफ क्वेश्चन जो है बिफोर हैंड बनानी है। हमेशा हमेशा याद रखना कि पहले चूज करो कि कौन सा क्वेश्चन आंसर करना है। बी क्लियर अबाउट इट। बीच वे में जाके डोंट मेक ब्लंडर्स जिसकी वजह से यू लूज मार्क्स। फोर्थ इज राइट क्लियरली। वेग पॉइंट्स या इधर उधर की बातें नहीं करनी। नंबर फिफ्थ के हमेशा हमेशा प्रैक्टिस बिफोर हैंड। एटलीस्ट 2 से 3 साल के पेपर्स करो। क्वेश्चंस डू रिपीट देमसेल्व्स। थोड़ी वर्डिंग चेंज होके आती है, सो यू विल बी एबल टू अटेम्प्ट दैट। सो प्रैक्टिस। एंड फाइनली जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट एडवाइस है कि अपने एनालिसिस पे के ऊपर वर्क करो। लर्न द चेन ऑफ एनालिसिस, लर्न द लिंक्स एंड लर्न एवरीथिंग, ठीक है। और डायग्राम्स वगैरह अभी से याद कर लो पीपीसी के। एंड दैट इज ऑल फ्रॉम माय साइड। बेस्ट ऑफ लक टू ऑल द कैंडिडेट्स फॉर द एग्जाम्स, and inshallah you'll be able to do good. Allah Hafiz.